Hello everyone, I am Lord Pasta Productions, and welcome to the 6th annual Simpvp survey. I am amazed by your continued support in the form of participation in this annual project for the community. Even though I have become slightly distanced from the server community, I've continued to play in the past year, accomplishing much and, of course, losing much. Before I present the results of this year's survey, I would like to make you aware of a few new questions you were asked this year. Firstly, I decided to add a question about the approval of Simpvp plugins, as these are often discussed within the community, and they are the main factor that sets Simpvp apart from similar servers, apart from the map and runtime. Secondly, I added a question about gender identity to complement the older question about sexual orientation. You were also asked about your country of residence, as this is important when inquiring about the server culture. Now we may find where the player base comes from on a global scale. One last thing, I've decided to alter the way I have visualized the data slightly. I have made all years before the current one transparent, so that you can more easily get a visual feel for the new results. I hope this is worth the trade-off of not being able to accurately assess the entire history of responses. With that out of the way, I would like to thank you once again for participating in this annual survey, and without further ado, we shall commence the review of responses. On the question, how old are you? We see that for the first time since 2019, there are no respondents who are under 13 years of age. This is probably due to the lower number of participants overall, as that is a fact that 2019 and 2024 have in common. However, that may just be speculation. It may be useful to recall last year's record high percentage of 8.2% for under 13s and record participation rate. Other than that, we can also make the interesting observation that the number of respondents aged 14 to 17 years of age is at an all-time low. It dropped from its previous low of 29.8% to 17.1%, which is significant. We can see a reciprocal high for those aged 18 to 25 and those aged 26 to 35, with those categories rising from a previous high of 59.6% to 68.3% and from 8.5% to 12.2% respectively. Although these results differ in many ways from the results of last year, they still affirm my claim that Simpvp is played mostly by those in their late teens and early 20s. Moving on to the next question, do you like the newest update to Minecraft? We see that approval of the newest update is at a local high. It appears Simpvp likes Minecraft version 1.21.3, at least relative to previous recent updates. It would be wrong to conclude that they like the newer version overall, as the majority of respondents chose to either select no or no option. Other than this, we can see numbers that do not differ in any significant way from the past assessments of current Minecraft versions. All I can say is that it appears that approval is slightly increasing from its previous drop. To the question, do you think Sim is being run well? We see the opposite trend. Whereas respondents are unsure of newer Minecraft versions, they consistently approve of the running of Simpvp. However, this year we see an all-time high in those who are unsure of server staff, dropping from a previous high of 18.9% to 19%, and a local high in those who disapprove. This is reciprocal with a local low in approval. The only other time approval has been lower was in 2021, when it dropped below 50% to 49.1%. Last year's 61.6% is now down to 52.4%, and for disapproval, last year's 23.3% is up to 28.6%. These values are significant. I do not currently know the reason for this recent trend, but I am interested in the opinions of viewers on this matter, as a change this significant likely has a cause. I have my own speculations, which I'll get to later, but I'd still like to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. When examining the question of join date, we can see a few interesting changes. The most noticeable change is that we appear to have lost our 2011 players, who in previous years have consistently responded to our survey. Perhaps this partially explains the lower participation this year. Older players leave, and all who are left are the new players who meet my survey with skepticism and disinterest. I have also noticed that join dates for respondents seem to have plateaued. This trend becomes more clear when we observe the graph I produced, where what looks like a cone of some sort can be observed spreading forwards and rightwards with an increasing length each year. The obvious implication is that there are more players with more join dates responding. Perhaps this reflects some kind of player retention. One final thing on this question is that there is a curious drop in respondents who would have joined in 2023, from 19.2% to 7.1%. This likely reflects a lack of retention among those who played starting in 2023. Observing the question of favorite year, we see once again that we have lost our 2011 players. The consequence of this is that there is no longer anyone responding who could have had 2011 as a favorite year. Our result is 0. We have continued the trend of the favorite year being the current year, as well as the trend that the favorite year decreases its percentage relative to other years each year. Other than these trends, there is not much else to make note of. To the question, are you a member of a group, we see a concerning trend emerge. It was harder to see this with only 2 survey results being present, but now, as we have 3 for this question, we can say with some level of certainty that we are indeed observing a trend. Those who responded with yes are at an all-time low, and reciprocally, those who responded with no are at an all-time high, from 69.9% to 52.4%, and from 30.1% to 47.6% respectively. It is my opinion that this reflects a collapse in server culture and roleplay that drove player retention and interest in earlier years. Due to older players leaving and the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, there is less online connection to fuel server activity, and this shows as results in my annual survey. People leave more if they join recently, as shown in the question concerning join dates. They pick older years as their favorite years in the favorite year question, and they are less likely to join a group, as shown by this question. This can even in part explain the local low in support for server staff, and very roughly, the changes in player age. This is also reflected in the response to the next question: what best describes your playstyle? As we observe an all-time low in those describing themselves as builders, and an all-time high in those calling themselves PvPers and explorers. There is less collaboration and more fighting and exploring to grasp at the works of a bygone era, quote-unquote. When considering the question of political views, we can see an immediate shift to the left wing. This is embodied in the significant all-time high in center-left respondents, as well as the local high in far-left respondents, from a previous high of 30.4% to 36.8%, and from a previous local high of 9.5% to 18.4% respectively. There is a reciprocal all-time low in center-right respondents and far-right respondents, from 15.9% to 10.5%, and from 8.2% to 7.9% respectively. Regarding the question about sexual orientation, I must first note that I have finally added an option for those who are asexual. It's about time, right? While there are not many things to note, as the current year's results fit quite nicely among those of previous years, there has been a noticeable decrease in the number of heteroflexible respondents. It appears that for this there have been a reciprocal increase in the number of bisexuals. 1. The heteroflexibles went from a previous low of 10.4% to 9.8%, and 3. The bisexuals went from 6.4% to 14.6%. Asexuals made up 2.4% of the respondents. On the question, "Are you autistic?" we observe a clear slow trend away from autism, a clear sign of that cultural decline I mentioned earlier. I joke. To be honest, I have no clue why it is that the rate of respondents claiming to be autistic has gone down every year. I'm open to theories that you may have in the comments down below. And finally, we move on to the questions that were only asked this year, and because of this, I will make my comments on them brief. Firstly, the question of approval of Simpvp plugins. Simpvp plugins boast a high rate of approval, which is to be expected as they are part of what makes the server unique. Secondly, the question about gender identity reveals that most players are cis males, followed by trans women and non-binary people in that order. Finally, the question about country residence reveals that the top 5 countries by players are the USA, followed by Canada, Estonia, the UK, and finally Germany in that order. The USA has 47.5% of the player base, and Canada 10%, with the rest mentioned receiving 5%. And with that, I will have to conclude our analysis of the results of the 2024 Simpvp survey. Thank you all so much for watching this video and for participating in the survey if that's something that you did. This is a yearly survey, so if you missed out this time, there is always next year. I've been Lord Pasta. Have a good day, and goodbye.